Imagine getting, a flagship smartphone experience for maybe 50, 60% of the price. Sounds like an incredible deal, right? But is it truly a bargain or are there maybe some hidden catches? That's really the question we're going to dive into today. We're talking about the Samsung Galaxy S25 FE, standing for Fan Edition, of course, a series that's all about bringing those premium features down to, well, a wider audience. So, our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack this latest version. We'll compare it to its predecessor, the S24 FE, and, other phones in that whole flagship killer space. We're going to explore everything from the design details, the AI stuff, gaming performance, camera upgrades, basically helping you decide if this phone actually delivers on its promise. And yeah, our sources, including a pretty detailed review from Bizzle, they paint a very interesting picture.
Yeah, which is truly fascinating, I think, about the FE series is how Samsung positions it. It's like a strategic shortcut, almost, to getting that near flagship experience. But this raises a really crucial question for anyone thinking about buying one.
Hmm.
How many compromises are uh, actually acceptable to get that lower price? And maybe more importantly, how do those specific choices, those trade-offs, really impact your daily use of the phone? So we'll synthesize all the details from our sources and try to answer that for you.
Okay, so let's kick things off with first impressions, because sometimes, it's those little design touches that tell you a lot. Our reviewer immediately highlighted the new blue color on the S25 FE, described it as done perfectly by Samsung. But if you just glance at it from, say, across the room, you might think, doesn't look that different from maybe the S20 FE. And the answer, kind of surprisingly, is both yes and no.
Yeah, exactly. While that core premium feel is still there, thanks to tough materials like Gorilla Victus Plus glass and the aluminum frame, our sources detail some pretty significant improvements, both aesthetically and ergonomically. Like, for instance, the back glass is now frosted and matte. That's a real departure from the glossy finish on the S24 FE, which was, let's be honest, a fingerprint magnet. That matte finish is not just about looks, it's a practical win for everyday use.
Right, so we're talking Gorilla Victus Plus on the back. That's Corning's really tough glass, built for drop and scratch resistance now with that nice matte finish. That's a definite step up. And the aluminum frame, which already felt pretty premium, now has a slightly duller color.
Yeah.
Adds to that refined, maybe less flashy vibe. And for people who really care about how it feels in the hand, the phone is noticeably thinner now, 7.4 millimeters. And lighter, too, at 190 grams. That's a measurable difference.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the camera design. It's gotten what they're calling an Ultra-style update. The lenses themselves are larger, and they look almost like they're stuck on the back, rather than being integrated smoothly into the body like on the S24 FE. It definitely gives it a more distinctive, kind of high-end look, mimicking Samsung's top phones. And crucially, Samsung kept that commitment to durability. You've got those premium materials, and still IP68 water resistance. That's the highest level you generally get for water and dust resistance. So, fewer worries about accidental spills or getting caught in the rain.
So basically, Samsung kept the solid premium foundations but really refined them. Better looks, more comfortable for long-term use. What stands out most to you about these design tweaks? That subtle shift towards maybe a more sophisticated look? Does it already make the S25 FE feel more like a genuine deal on a premium device?
Oh, absolutely. I think the commitment to refining the experience, not just piling on features, is key here. The matte back, the thinner profile, the lighter weight, these directly address common user feedback. People want comfortable, less smudgy phones. It's a clear signal Samsung is listening. And yeah, it definitely solidifies that premium perception for the FE series without necessarily jacking up the price too dramatically.
Okay, moving from that elegant outside to what you'll be staring at all day.
Yeah.
At the screen. Now, on paper, it's a 6.7-inch dynamic LTPO AMOLED Gen 2 FHD Plus display. 120 hertz refresh rate, HDR10 plus support. Now, a lot of people might think, wait, didn't the S24 FE have specs kind of like that? And the answer is, well, not quite.
Yeah, if you step back a bit, this really shows how Samsung focused on some long-standing user complaints or feedback with the S25 FE's display. Our sources highlight two really critical improvements over the S24 FE. First, a big reduction in the top and side bezels. Our reviewer actually notes users have been asking for this for like 3 generations.
Yeah.
The bottom bezel, or the chin, also shrank, though maybe a bit less dramatically. That's probably Samsung's way of keeping some distinction from their Plus models. But the overall look of the screen, Much better, they said. Definitely more immersive.
And the second big change is the panel technology itself, right? It's now using an LTPO panel. That was a key thing missing from the S24 FE. Now, interestingly, our reviewer didn't really notice the claimed wider frequency range, how smoothly the refresh rate adjusts in just normal daily use. But that LTPO tech enables something else, a major enhancement somewhere else.
And that enhancement is something that really boosts the premium feel. That LTPO technology is precisely what allows for a much, much better always-on display, the AOD.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Our reviewer called it a huge, noticeable improvement. Apparently, on older Samsung mid-rangers, when you had AOD on a black screen, you could still see the display was slightly lit up, you could see the black bezels, give it a kind of cheap experience. But with this S25 FE, because of the new screen type, the AOD is completely black. The bezels just blend right in. That's a huge aha moment for usability, and just that premium feel makes the phone look way more seamless, even when it's just sitting there showing the time.
Definitely. And beyond the AOD, the general display quality is just excellent. Colors, details, dynamic range, watching videos. It's typical Samsung strength, really, across all their price points. And it specifically fixes that excessive redness issue that some people noticed on the S24 FE display. So more accurate, pleasing colors. Brightness. It keeps the same 1900 nits peak brightness as the last one. That's plenty bright, even in direct sun. Although our reviewer did kind of wish for maybe even more brightness, just because some other flagship killers are pushing that boundary now. And like the front's protected by that Gorilla Victus Plus glass, but it's worth noting you don't get a screen protector pre-applied in the box this time.
Okay, let's talk engine, what's under the hood. The S25 FE uses Samsung's older flagship processor, the Exynos 2400. You might remember that from the S24 Plus. Our reviewer pointed out there's been a lot of chatter and debate around this choice. Highlights a key strategy for the FE line, I think.
Yeah, this brings us right back to that core question of trade-offs, doesn't it? The Exynos 2400 is, make no mistake, a powerful 10-core chip. And our sources confirm Samsung has tried to optimize its performance in the S25 FE. Now, comparing it to the S24 FE's chip that was the Exynos 2400i, a slightly, let's say, downclocked version benchmarks do show the 2400 performing better. But, and this is key, in actual real-world use, our reviewer found the distance wasn't really big or fundamental. Both phones feel rocket fast for just opening apps, navigating the system, that kind of stuff.
So technically an upgrade, but maybe not one you feel every second. What about heat? That's sometimes been an Exynos concern.
Right. Samsung claims they put in a larger cooling chamber this time. And the reviewer confirms heat management is noticeably better compared to the S24 FE, which apparently heated up pretty easily. Now, the S25 FE still gets warm if you push it hard, but it seems the software is now quicker to slightly dial back the processor frequencies under sustained load. Helps keep the thermals in check better. It ships with 8 GB of RAM, and that super fast UFS 4.0 storage, 2056 GB or 512 GB options. Our reviewer did explicitly wish for 12 GB of RAM, though. Mentioned something about even iPhone 17 offers a 120 Hz display, which sounded more like a general wish for, beefier specs in this category than a direct Apple comparison. And this is huge. It ships with One UI 8 based on Android 16, and Samsung is promising 7 years of Android updates. That is currently the longest support window in the entire Android world. Really changes the long-term value calculation, makes that deal potentially even sweeter down the line.
Okay, but here's where things get, a bit surprising. And maybe frustrating, especially for gamers. Our reviewer found a pretty major limitation with gaming performance, specifically PUBG. Hugely popular game, it only runs at 60 FPS on the S25 FE, which is kind of shocking considering the Exynos 2400 should easily handle 120 FPS, and even the older S24 FE ran it at 90 FPS.
Yeah, that points to a persistent challenge sometimes within the Android world, especially with specific chipsets. The issue seems to be a lack of developer support for this specific Exynos chip in that game, even though the chip was already in the S24 Plus. Odd. Our reviewer hopes either the game developer or Samsung pushes an update to fix it. And it's important for you, the listener, to remember, this review was done at a specific time. This gaming issue might get resolved later with software updates. Still, it's definitely something to keep in mind if PUBG at 120 FPS is like your #1 priority. Now, something that is really impressive is how Samsung didn't seem to compromise on the software experience, especially the AI features, all those flagship AI capabilities you see in the S25 Ultra. They're apparently all here in the FE, makes it a very capable device for those intelligent tasks.
That's a really strong point. And these aren't just, marketing buzzwords. Our sources highlight genuinely useful AI features, stuff that feels pulled right from the top models, like the AI eraser. Lets you just circle an object in a photo and poof, it removes it and fills in the background pretty flawlessly. And the audio eraser uses AI to clean up video recordings, get rid of wind noise, other distractions, so you get clear audio. Those are incredibly practical tools for everyday stuff, making complex edits really simple.
Mm-hmm. And beyond the fancy AI, you still get the core Samsung ecosystem strengths, full Samsung DeX support for that desktop-like experience on a bigger screen. The USB-C port is USB 3.2, which means very fast data transfer. Great if you move big files around.
Yes.
Security-wise, it's still an optical under-display fingerprint sensor. Needs full finger contact. Speed is apparently acceptable.
And the audio gets a good mention, too.
Yeah, stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos, praised as loud, immersive, and flawless. Though worth noting again, no traditional 3.5mm headphone jack. Standard these days, mostly. It also has an extra mic for noise cancellation during calls, and a fee for payments, and generally good network and Wi-Fi performance. Seems to lean more towards the S and Ultra series quality here, not the cheaper Galaxy A series.
Right, but not quite perfect on all fronts. There was one small, kind of surprising detail about the proximity sensor, the thing that turns the screen off during calls. Our reviewer noted it's software-based and needs to be faster. Apparently, it can lead to accidental screen touches during calls, hopefully something a software update could easily fix, but yeah, a slight annoyance in daily use if it's not quite right. Okay, let's talk battery life. Because, what good is all this power if the phone dies halfway through the day? The S25 FE comes with a 4,900 mAh battery. It's a bit bigger, 200 mAh more than the S24 FE had. So you'd naturally expect better battery life, wouldn't you?
You would think so. But this raises that important question again about how theoretical specs translate to the real world. Our sources found something pretty surprising. Despite that larger battery capacity, our reviewer observed basically no difference in actual battery performance or screen-on time compared to the S24 FE. Both phones typically gave around 7 to 8 hours of screen-on time with medium usage, enough to last a full day, but no real improvement.
Huh. So the extra 200 mAh just vanished. Why do you think that is? Does that point back to the processor, maybe?
That seems to be the most likely explanation, yeah. It kind of reveals that balancing act Samsung is doing with the FE series. Our sources suggest that the Exynos 2400 processor, because it has slightly higher actual clock speeds than the 2400i and the S24 FE, might just be consuming that extra battery capacity. So Samsung gave a bit more battery with one hand, but the slightly more power-hungry chip maybe took it away with the other. It confirms that trade-off is always there, likely prioritizing that raw processing power for the flagship killer image. The reviewer still wished for an even bigger battery, though, just for complete peace of mind, something closer to the Ultra or the S25 Plus models.
That's a great insight into Samsung's strategy there. Okay, what about charging speed? That's often an area where FE models might, cut corners.
Thankfully, not here. This is actually a significant upgrade. The charging speed jumps to 45W. That's up from 25W on the S24 FE, which was feeling a bit slow. So 45W lets you get a full charge in about an hour. That's Samsung's current fastest charging speed. Wireless charging is also supported. It's a really welcome improvement, especially if you rely on quick top-ups during the day.
And here's a little something extra for potential buyers, maybe depending on the region. Our reviewer specifically mentioned wishing that Samsung Egypt would maybe include a 45W charger as a gift, maybe with pre-orders. They argue that that small addition could make the phone a very strong deal. It's funny how a small thing, like including the right charger, can really sweeten the pot, isn't it?
It really can. It removes a friction point for the buyer.
Okay, finally, let's get to the cameras. In this whole flagship killer space, cameras are often a huge differentiator. So does the S25 FE deliver a truly flagship-level photo experience?
Well, the camera story it's a bit nuanced. Our sources revealed that the rear camera hardware is actually largely unchanged from the S24 FE. We're talking the same 50MP main sensor with optical image stabilization, the same 8MP telephoto lens with 3x optical zoom and OIS, and the same 12MP ultra-wide. But there is a clear improvement in one really crucial area.
Ah, okay. So the rear cameras are basically carryovers, but the improvement is The selfie camera.
Exactly. The selfie camera is now 12 megapixels, f2.2 aperture. That's an upgrade from the previous model. And for video, folks, it's worth noting both rear cameras can shoot 8K video, and you get 4K at 30 frames per second across all the lenses, main, ultra-wide, and telephoto. It's pretty solid versatility.
Okay, but what about the actual photos? If the rear hardware is the same, does it look any different? Our sources say no fundamental difference in the actual photo quality between the S25 FE and the S24 FE from those rear cameras. It really comes down to identical hardware and pretty similar processors driving them. They mentioned the newer One UI 8 software might introduce some slight processing differences here and there, in certain lighting maybe, but not a big noticeable change overall.
That's right. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because the S24 FE's cameras were already considered very good and competitive for a flagship killer phone. So the S25 FE's photos still lean strongly towards what you'd expect from flagship phones, definitely not just